Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I will be your judge, jury, and your analyst. And this is the top 5 teams for Open Ultra League. You know, the league you all used to be for if you don't know, a long time ago in a land far, far, far away. No, I'm not talking about Shrek. I'm talking about Season 1 and 2 of Go Battle League, when you were forced to do Open Ultra League. There was no such thing as Ultra Premier Cup, and sadly, would you like an extra large cheeseburger with fries? Because that's all Open Ultra Premier is nowadays. But you know what? Back in the day, you had no choice but to play Open Ultra League. So, I bring to you from data and from teams that I've used and practiced with and ran a couple of sims with, actually. For Season 8 Open Ultra League, I bring you the top 5 teams. As I always say, please consider contributing to ppoke.com by clicking on this link below over here. My little mini ad. Congratulations. Just kidding. Hopefully you guys are having a great day, but as you see here, we will be testing Open Ultra League. Now, Open Ultra League didn't change too much. The only update is that Registeel finally got Focus Blast damage back. For some dumb reason, Niantic decided, okay, for those of you that don't know, they nerfed Registeel by putting Focus Blast by minus 10 points of damage. Honestly, that made such a minuscule, like, it made somewhat of a difference between, like, 1 HP in a dream scenarios, but other than that, Focus Blast, there was no reason to justify the nerf in the first place. And they really just, they're like, oh, we buffed Focus Blast. No, you guys just put it back in place. It's like the, you guys ever watched The Land Before Time? You know, when you know the dinosaurs that, like, move to another, like, if you never watched a movie, it's like, long story short, dinosaurs migrate, dinosaurs find new home, dinosaurs eat food. That's pretty much Registeel. But Lord Basura-chan here, or Trash Can, as, like, yeah. Basura means trash, and then, you know. Okay, enough. Anyways, enough roasting Registeel. As you see here, Registeel has been at the top of the food chain for a long time, since it became back into an XL. Other XLs compromise Open Ultra League, however, the kind of antichrist to XLs is Legendaries. And a lot of teams I show you in the top teams will feature Legendary Pokemon as well as XL Pokemon. Anyways, if you are rich, not rich like Mr. Krabs, because Mr. Krabs has a boatload of money, then I will give you my top 5 teams for the Open Ultra League. Don't worry, I'll be giving a budget team too, but yeah, I always do budget teams too, but here's Open Ultra League. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, so for team number 5, we have All Reliable. This team actually used to piss all of you off a long time ago, and this is actually season, like, what, was it season 2 or season 3's most powerful team? Basically, season 2, season 3's, like, big team that absolutely annoyed the living heck out of all of you, but it's actually really good. It's still really good. Now, this team kind of, as you see here, Cresselia lead, Giratina as your safe switch, Registeel as your closer. So, Cresselia, I have here, some people have been using Cresselia with Future Sight rather than Moonblast. So with Future Sight, here's what happens. With Future Sight, if you hit Talonflame through shields, which most Talonflames won't actually shield, just because they're going to assume it's either a Moonblast or a Grass Knot, it's going to do big damage, and it's going to let you take that Talonflame matchup. You'll probably go down shields unless you ate the first Flame Charge, but it's very, very strong and does really well. The thing is with Cresselia, even if you're gonna get walled anyways, if you see something like Obstagoon lead and you don't have Moonblast, the reason why I'm using Future Sight is because you still hit Giratina for big damage, but with Moonblast, you also, like, you're still gonna get walled by Registeel regardless. That's why, or this Registeel or Melmetal are gonna give you a hard time, so you could choose to sack Cresselia, but that's mainly there to Future Sight to cover Talonflame. Also, like, just to cover Talonflame. Also, I have Dragon Breath Giratina here. So, Dragon Breath Giratina, I like Dragon Breath for one of 2 reasons. One, Dragon Breath, you beat other if with Dragon Breath you do heavy damage, you can still beat Registeel with Dragon Breath. Dragon Breath also allows you to do big damage against, well, you don't see a lot of other dragons out there, but you can use either Dragon Breath or Shadow Claw. I like Dragon Breath just because Obstagoon. So, a lot of times the worst scenario you can actually encounter with Giratina is that you get locked into an Obstagoon. With Dragon Breath, you don't get locked in Obstagoon, and most of the things Dragon Breath can beat will also beat, unless it's like a 1 HP or a charge move scenario. And of course, we got the giant hunk of junk, the big metal junkyard, Registeel. You can't metal bend in it like in the Avatar, but it... That was a poor reference. Registeel, like, well, technically, you know, metal bending is incredibly powerful in the Avatar, and Registeel is just, even though it's a trash can, you can't front that it's extremely powerful. Anyways, enough of me babbling about this team. This team is extremely strong. Despite it, this team has incredible bulk, is extremely safe, and very consistent as far as damage. If you win the lead with this team, you have such a meta, like, the combinations are so meta that you're gonna do perfectly fine. Giratina Altered is a fantastic save switch. Registeel is the most powerful closer. Cresselia with Future Sight can hit those Talonflames and can do big damage if you manage to land it against something like a neutral. You want Grass Knot just like you can take out Grass Knot if you want to, but you know, Swampert's still a thing. With Grass Knot, you threaten, and with Grass Knot, like, you could still, like, against the mirror against Cresselia, you could do some fancy plays against the mirror Cresselia. Because most of the time, other Cresselias will Moonblast you to death in hopes that they get the debuff. Fun fact, if you have a good IV Cresselia, in the Zero Shield, you can actually beat Melmetal straight Grass Knot. So, that's in the Zero Shield. But you have to have good IVs, which most of you don't have. You can tell I know this just because, like, I've used a crappy one for, like, the longest time, so that's basically what it is. But if you look below here, and then if you look below, it's not that bad. Like, it's okay. So for Stunfisk, if you see a stun, well, I hope you don't see it, because if you see Stunfisk, it's really rough. It's really rough if you see a Stunfisk, but it's okay. You could try to bully well, you could Grass Knot it to death, so it's actually not that bad. And of course with Talonflame, like I mentioned, with Future Sight, you could be okay. And then with Drifblim, Drifblim might be rough. If you see an XL Drifblim running around, it's rough on you just because it kind of sucks and it's a good idea, but at the same time, Drifblim and Melmetal don't get along a lot. Basically, it's because of Melmetal. Melmetal, even though Melmetal will give Drifblim a hard time, so will Registeel. So, a good thing is, well, with Jellicent, you have Grass Knot with Cresselia. So, again, the reason why you have that combination, or this moveset combination, is just because it takes out most of your leads in the 2 shields, or give you a chance. Also, with Future Sight, if you hit a Gengar with Future Sight, it's going to die. So that's why, as you see here, even though Gengar does beat you in the 1s, which you see are the 0s and the 1s, Gengar will get taken out by Future Sight. So it's not that. So there's a lot of weapons you have with Future Sight. Again, you can run whichever moveset you want, but I like Future Sight just because you're gonna, like, it gives you a huge chance against Talonflame. Alright, next up we got Triple XL, Talonflame, Umbreon, and Abomasnow. I think this was, either season 6 top team, I believe, and season 7's, like, #1 team, like, for the first part, but this is the team I use, so just in case you're curious, like, this one was on pvpoke.com, Triple XL. When XLs first came out, I ran, like, The Sims for this team, like, when I did, and Talonflame. And then, you know, you put everything together, and this team is just stupid strong, because, well, yeah. And that's why a lot of people on pvpoke were simming it, and it became the #1 team at one point. It was literally, I think, at, like, a 8% usage or something, so a lot of people were using this team. And this, with such a large sample size, it had a huge amount of success. And as you see here, the reason being is because this team has a lot, like, it seems pretty great across the board. It doesn't have a ton, it's like, you can pressure shield, you have options to do a lot of things, and it does, especially if you win the lead, it will do extremely well against a lot of combinations. Now, as you see here, Talonflame is a beast, that's why it's the #1 lead. It threatens so many things, and like I said, even if you do, like, lose against a lot of things, you can Brave Bird to threaten shield, switch out, and then whatever comes in has to have is essentially you could force a shield disadvantage. And Umbreon is so thick that it can do a ton of damage, and then you can farm. A lot of scenarios that happen with me is that I will either switch out Talonflame and Umbreon with shield, give up Umbreon completely, farm down with Talonflame, and then Abomasnow sweeps. So there's a lot of scenarios where that's happening. But Abomasnow's closing pressure, and like I said, Umbreon's bulk meshes very well with Talonflame in the lead. Talonflame is really good in the lead just because of its ability to shield break a ton of things. It will force your opponent 9 times out of 10, unless they have really big coconuts. They are, and I mean like very large coconut, like, you know, not Godzilla-sized coconuts, but you know, like if they're extremely large, they will not shield the Brave Bird, and then it will suck for them because you'll ultimately KO. Now, the thing you do have to watch out with this team is that Melmetal, the only thing that you really have to look for is really Melmetal. So Melmetal is really rough because it does beat Talonflame in the 2 shields. Yes, you could force both shields down with Melmetal, but Melmetal is rough against this team. Basically, if Melmetal ends up in the back, you could flame charge it to death for sure. But if you do get led against it, it's very rough to deal with. You're going to have to break both shields with Talonflame in the 2s, and then you have to farm down with Umbreon or Abomasnow. So you could be a little fancy, but it really depends on how the match goes out and whether you get fast moves or incinerates through their charge moves. So you have to be really fancy when it comes to Melmetal. Magnezone can also give you a hard time, but you don't see too many Magnezones in Open Ultra League. I've seen like 1. And they regretted life choices because I let Talonflame into them. In the 2 shield, you have a very strong chance against Magnezone just because you have 2 shields. And Flame Charge hits like a brick. Well, not really a brick. It's going to... It hits like a truck, to be more exact. But as you see here, the team has a mid-threat score. But like I said, it's very... Like, the reason why you see Bs across the board is because this team still does very well. You could choose to break shield, sacrifice Talonflame, or you could say switch an Umbreon, sack Umbreon altogether, and then possibly come out with something really good. This team covers each other against Charmers really well, so even though Umbreon does lose to Charmers, Abomasnow can outpressure them with Weather Ball, and of course Talonflame does resist Charm because it's a fire type. So really good team. If you're using it right now, if you're going to use it or plan on using Open Ultra League, it'll still do just as well for you in this season than it'll still do very well for you in Season 7. Or Season 8, because it did well for me in Season 7. It helped me in Legend, but if you have all these 3, it can do very well for you. Very, very well. Alright, the next team, if you really like Obstagoon, this is Obstagoon, Cresselia Switch, and then you have Gengar as your closer. So this is a very awkward team, but the reason why it is a very awkward team, but the thing about Gengar with Shadow Ball does heavy damage. Shadow Punch also outpressures Talonflame a lot, and outside of seeing an Umbreon, Umbreon is probably your worst nightmare with this team, but if you catch it in a lead, it's pretty good. So this team is very, very interesting, Obstagoon, Cresselia, Gengar, because it's one of the top teams. It was actually top from Season 7, but it was very strange, just because you don't see a Gengar closer too many times. But with Gengar's Shadow Ball, you can nuke Cresselia and Giratina all through at certain ranges. But the problem with Gengar, it's very glassy. This team is not friendly as far as skill base, just because it's basically the reason why you Obstagon in why did I say Obstagon? Well, it's gonna be Obstagon if you get punched in the face by Goro. And what I mean by Goro, I mean the 4-armed monolith that is called Machamp. It is very muscular. He or she will take its 4 arms and just pummel you to death. But that's why you have Cresselia and Gengar in the back. I've noticed that this team does very well against Machamp teams because if you catch Machamp on Gengar, there's a lot of farm down strats, or you could just take a lot of punches with Gengar. So Gengar is very strong. This team also has very, very neutral, great across the board, like the Triple XL team. But it's a very strange team, to say the least. And like I said, it's not very user skill friendly. You're gonna have to finish shield and have good energy management if you want to use this team to succession. The good thing is, if you have Cresselia, the other 2 Pokemon are relatively cheap. Unlike a lot of the Pokemon on this list that I gave you, most of them, this team doesn't have any XLs. Obstagoon's only 10k for the second move, and like I said, Cresselia's been out, not for a while, but there's been several times Cresselia has been released. So Cresselia does have Moonblast / Grass Knot, so you will need a Legacy one. The reason why you need Grass Knot is because Swampert can give this team a hard time. Also, for Obstagoon's moveset, I forgot to mention this, you can use Hyper Beam or Gunk Shot. I like Hyper Beam for one funny reason. If you Hyper Beam through shields against an Umbreon, and then you counter it down, there's a lot of things you could do with Hyper Beam that make it extremely powerful and make you do extremely well in Ultra League. So if you Hyper Beam through, you could Hyper Beam a Togekiss through shields and you pretty much KO it. So Hyper Beam is there for the reason to literally just nuke your opponent or create some kind of like winning play. As you see here, this team does struggle against Registeel, but if you get the Night Slash boost with Obstagoon, that's why most of you use it in the first place. You run Night Slash Obstagoon just because you want to get the boost. If you get the boost, it does very, very well, and it's extremely powerful. And you pretty much just destroy your opponent because Obstagoon with the boost is, like, super annoying, and like I said, it will force your opponent to shield. But Obstagoon does, if you lose basic, this team's very generic. If you lose lead with Obstagoon, say switch into Cresselia, and then close out with Gengar with heavy Shadow Punch or Shadow Ball damage. Shadow Ball will KO a lot of things at high ranges, but also remember Gengar isn't super, like, it's not bulky, so again, this is a very skill-based team to use. It's found success with a lot of people that have practiced with it. I personally didn't mind it that much, but I was kind of like half and half with it. It was good, it was bad, but like I said, it's not very user-friendly. So it does have a low threat score, but just keep in mind this team is very, very, of course, if Obstagoon boosts, it's going to boost. Hyper Beam through shields, again, very, very risky and very, very risky team. But if you play it well, it will work wonders for you in Open Ultra League for Season 8. Alright, so for the next team, we have a chicken, a duck, and a frog. You know, I just looked on Twitter right now, and Golden Corral is trending. If you ever ate at Golden Corral, it's this wonderful buffet with some really good rolls. Their rolls aren't as good as Red Lobster, but you know what? Well, it really depends. You know, like, oh my gosh. Anyways. Oh, I'm hungry. Anyways, as you see here, you have Talonflame lead, Cresselia as a safe switch, and Swampert as your closer. It seems actually pretty generic. I know generic doesn't sound too much, but you have XL Talonflame, a Legendary, and a starter. It's the best of all three worlds, basically. Everything that Open Ultra League is compromised in this team. As you see here, the Talonflame, I don't really have to explain Talonflame. I explained it a lot in how it's used on the last team. Cresselia, this basically just used Cresselia as safe switch and Swampert to close out. Swampert is still incredibly powerful because if you Earthquake through shields, or if you have an energy lead, it destroys everything, okay? Swampert with energy and shields equals death. That's basically what it is, even against something like Cresselia. Cresselia's hurt enough, it will die to Hydro Cannon. I've done it plenty of times where I've Hydro Cannon down a Cresselia just because I've had like 90 energy on freaking Swampert, so great coverage, great bulk, very, very safe and good consistency. This team, Cresselia's is a fantastic safe switch, but the reason why this team's even better is just because you could break shields with both Cresselia and Swampert, and then close out with Talonflame with like an Incinerate or Brave Bird, etc. Or you could give up Talonflame, then run over your opponent's back row with Swampert or Cresselia. There are some times where I've actually farmed down with Swampert in the back and had 2 Hydro Cannons ready for whatever is in the back, which usually equaled death for my opponent. Especially with having Cresselia as your closer, Cresselia is able to close out against a lot of combinations, minus getting locked into a Steel type. So this team is very, very safe, very, very good. As you see here, again, I already explained how to play Talonflame on the last team, but this just uses Cresselia as your safe switch and Swampert to close out. If you can come out with shield advantage or energy advantage on Swampert, it's the extremely powerful team. Your biggest threat will be Giratina Origins, just because, but even then, like, you have Moonblast to cover it with Cresselia, and you also are able, Origins isn't the thickest thing since sliced bread. Swampert's Hydro Cannons will do a decent chunk of damage on Giratina Origin, just because it's more attack weight than Giratina Altered. Lugia can also give you a hard time. Dragon Tail Lugia actually can give Talonflame a little bit of a hard time, just because it's going to do a lot of damage with Dragon Tail, and Talonflame, like, it's going to have to rev up a lot of those. It's going to have to rev up a lot of those pretty much flame charges, or you could burp through shields, either one. But there's a lot of play against Lugia in the 2 shields, so you can decide how you want to play it out. Of course, if you get a negative match with Talonflame, like against Gyarados, etc., you have Cresselia and Swampert out there. Swampert, the thing about Swampert's Hydro Cannon is so strong that even if it is resisted, it does a lot of damage at a lot of ranges. Like, it'll take out like a third of Gyarados' health if it hits a Gyarados. But as you see here, your worst nightmare is probably a Water Lead just to take out Talonflame, but you can burp through shield, so you can hit a Brave Bird, say switch into Cresselia, and then try to come out with shield advantage. Again, I explained a lot of the strategies with Talonflame on the last team, so this is basically just using Cresselia, the most powerful safe switch, and Swampert used to be one of the most powerful closers in the, yeah, it actually used to be, yeah, it was like the number 3 closer, but that doesn't mean that in Season 8, Swampert, since Season 1, with energy and with shields, or if you're good at managing energy and with shield advantage and finessing those scenarios, you will do very well with this team. And it ranked very high in the Season 8 rankings. And I've actually used it for a little bit, and I won a lot of matches. But like I said, you have, like, if you are good with Swampert, this team is for you. And there's a lot of play with it in a lot of scenarios. Alright, and now for my last team. If you like Machamp, if you like Goro, if you like Mortal Kombat, welcome to the champion of the 4... You know what kind of blows my mind? And this isn't necessarily a rant, but the fact that Machamp can dump a bunch of rocks literally out of thin freaking air. Because, you know, I never thought about this, but my friend mentioned to me, you know, if you have a Machamp, how, like, if you battle with a Machamp, how do you magically just have, like, rocks slide out from out of nowhere? Do you just, like, strong arm the ground or, like, move the earth like Captain Planet and throw rocks at your opponent? So technically it's rock throw instead of rock slide. Anyways, instead of minus the conversation between me and my buddy, this is Machamp, Cresselia, Switch, and Umbreon to close out. I actually used this team before. It was actually, I believe, the #1 team in Season 8. I mean, not Season 8 because it hasn't happened yet, but it was actually the strongest team, I believe, in Season 7 Part 2. So this is the current top team for Open Ultra League. I've actually used it before. It's extremely powerful. Umbreon in the closer is very good because Umbreon has such a strong matchup against Cresselia. It also has a very strong matchup against Giratina Altered. So it core breaks the Gira Crest core a lot. So Umbreon has a lot of great matchups against a lot of different combinations just because it's so bulky. Machamp lead is there to catch the Obstagoon, which is basically your worst nightmare with this team. If you catch Obstagoon in the lead with a Machamp, you are very happy because all you have to do is punch your opponent to death and RPS them to oblivion. This team is also statistically very powerful. It has a safer coverage, but it's great in every other rating, as great bulk rate, safety, and consistency. Literally, the combined bulk of Umbreon and Cresselia is enough to make up for Machamp's bulk, which is just pretty nuts. Another cool thing is that the thing with Machamp is Machamp's ability to straight Rock Slide, Articuno, and Talonflame to death. Yes, you could just straight Rock Slide. You can try to bait. I've done it before, but you know, the safer play is to just straight Rock Slide, because a lot of times what happens is that you don't want your opponent to get a lot of farm on Machamp anyways. Just be warned. I've done it before, and if it didn't work, you kind of die. But Machamp also takes out the Steel archetype. Registeel and Melmetal can give you a hard time just because Umbreon does get hit with super effective damage by fighting types, which I mean Superpower, and of course the Spirit Bomb from Hell, which is the Focus Blast. I don't understand how Focus Blast is just like with the regular. It's a little worse for wear now just because Focus Blast is at its original value. The 10 damage doesn't matter too much because most of the times it's gonna kill you when it's supposed to anyways. But just keep that out there. If you're trying to 1 HP in a Dream with a Focus Blast, just be very careful. Machamp does really well against a lot of combinations. In the 2-shield, it will do a ton of damage. It's able to beat Swampert in the 2-shield, actually. So just keep that in mind. It can. So if you can get like counters through, it can 2-shield its way to victory against Swampert. As you see, beats a whole bunch of combinations that Cresselia and Umbreon would be weak against in the back. Of course, you can get hard counter just like every other team. And as you see here, your worst nightmare is probably a Charmer. So if you see a Charmer, that's the kind of bad thing about this team. Charmers do go to town against you. Umbreon against Clefable isn't too bad because Last Resort still threatens your opponent. Just because Umbreon's so bulky, it can tank a few Charmers and let you... I've last resorted down a bunch of Charmers to take the W with this team. So not saying it's not terrible, but you know, it's not comfortable, but it can happen. Also, the rest of your weaknesses or potential threats, as you see here, is literally just Charmers. That's what makes this team so good. It's just because of the only real weakness you truly have is outside of getting hard countered like every other person is susceptible to, is just Charmers. As you see, it does extremely well. I don't foresee anyone using Shadow Nidoqueen in Open Ultra League just because Giratina Altered is out there, so is Cresselia. Cresselia and Gira Altered are much stronger in Open Ultra than they are in Great League. So, well, actually, you don't see Giratina Altered in Great League anyways, but just because of Giratina Altered's presence, along with that, Nidoqueen does have to Earth Power a lot of things to death, and it's still not comfortable to see Registeel flash cannoning its way to victory against a Nidoqueen. So keep that in mind. As you see here, very, very strong against overall meta. High threat score, like I mentioned, but it's only because of Charmers. The rest of you see here, you're very unlikely to encounter in Open Ultra League. So it's this is a very good team. If you can squeeze out, if Umbreon can squeeze out Last Resorts, or if you can get Cresselia on the Charmer in the back, it's very, very powerful. So this team does really well. If you've used it before, it's not a wonder why. It's really, really good. So it's a little tricky because you have to realign correctly, and you are asking a lot for Umbreon to Last Resort Charmers to death, but it's totally possible. I've done it before, and this team's, again, statistically one of the top teams, and you still have win cons against Charmers. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Open Ultra League, in my opinion, is hard for the reason that Legendaries are super oppressive, and there's a high barrier to entry. But it's also easier in the fact that the meta is way more stable than Ultra Premier. If you look at Ultra Premier thing, the new Poison and Pidgeot buff actually affected that meta very heavily, while it didn't do so in Open Ultra. Because Giratina is a Ghost type versus Poison, Giratina is kind of the bane of existence for the Poison typings. And of course, because you have things like Melmetal and Registeel out, Pidgeot isn't the greatest thing since Sliced America in Open Ultra League. So if you hate Open Ultra League, you don't have a lot of starters, I do implore you to give it a chance, or at least practice through Open Ultra League. Especially since Open Ultra League will be the only thing available along with the Great League Remix for like 2 weeks. So I would practice, get used to it for Open Ultra, because if you don't want to play the Ultra League Remix, Open Ultra is available with it. And like I said, the meta is a lot more friendlier than Ultra League Remix. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully these teams do help you out. I will be doing a budget team video because you can do pretty well with budget Pokemon in Open Ultra League as well as Ultra Premier. So look out for that video. But if would you please do so, please like and subscribe. If you've already subscribed, I do appreciate you. If you would like to subscribe, it's totally free, helps out the channel, and by the time you are done listening to the sound of my voice or the sound of this spiel that I do every time for every video, all you have to do is put your mouse below that. At least see that little red box that says subscribe, put your mouse over it, and it will easily pop up the subscribe box. It's totally free, like I mentioned, and it totally helps my sub goals out, and I really do appreciate the support. For those of you that are surprised, you guys are awesome. I appreciate you. I hope you guys are doing well in your Go Battle League sets. And like I said before, I hope you guys are having fun. Season 8's kind of rough, but this is the best time for you to make Legend because the season is so long. So I implore you to really put in the reps, because this is the easiest time to make Legend in Go Battle League. Literally, if this isn't your time, like, this is your time. As long as you put in the work, you put in the time, you should be able to make rank 10, or not rank 10, rank 24 and become Legend for the first time. Hopefully this video does help you out in that journey. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.